Hello and welcome to Lily's Library. So today I thought it'd be fun to talk about my top 10 books of all time. Now this was a very difficult decision to make. I feel like my top 10 books change all of the time, but over the years I think these are some of my favorite and just like reads that I think about all the time that have been kind of fundamental in my life. So starting with some of the honorable mentions, some ones that I absolutely love. These ones are from like my childhood or teenage years that I really love, but I don't think quite make my top 10. And the first one is the Spiderwick Chronicles. This goes for all of the books in that series. I just absolutely loved these books as a kid. They were some of my favorite things and so whimsical and fun, and I just really love them. And I don't have any copies of them because I read them through the library, so I'm tempted to try and find some secondhand copies and get them to add to my collection, but I really thoroughly loved these. Other ones are also like the Cruel Prince trilogy by Holly Black, as well as The Darkest Part of the Forest, which was one of my first Holly Black books besides the Spiderwick Chronicles, and I absolutely loved that one as well. Just Holly Black was a huge part of my childhood and I absolutely loved her. I really had a big thing for Cassandra Clare's books as well, and even though a lot of the things in them don't really hold up and I don't know if I would love them if I read them now as much as I did then, but I still really love them. They were such a cherished part of my teenage years. But now we're actually going to get into the top 10. Now this isn't really going to be in any particular order because I feel like I can't order these. So we're just going to go down the stacks. I've got 2 stacks of books here, so we'll just go through them. Okay, so we're just going to start with the first book on the pile, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is the only classic on this list as well, but this is just absolutely beautiful. I think it is so beautiful and heartbreaking and so unique and interesting and just did so much for the sci-fi genre. It is just absolutely phenomenal. This is one of my favorite books of all time and something I'm really long overdue for a reread of. I actually just recently picked up this edition and it's got like this beautiful painting and artwork on it, and I love that it's paperback as well because I'd only seen the hardcover of this edition, but I absolutely love this. I recently watched Del Toro's Frankenstein as well and thought that was absolutely incredible. And then I also, God, like a year ago, 2 years ago, I don't know how long it was, but QPAC, the theatre in Brisbane, had a stage play version of Frankenstein that I went and saw with one of my friends and absolutely loved it. But I also actually picked up an art print at Supernova of Frankenstein because I absolutely love it. But yes, just one of my favorite classics. I feel like I don't really need to say too much of what this is about, but if for some reason you haven't heard of Frankenstein, in this we follow Victor Frankenstein, who is a surgeon and a doctor, and he has this goal to be able to beat death, and to achieve that he ends up making the perfect man and uses all these different body parts of men to create this creature. And it is really horrifying and heartbreaking the way it happens. This is really about men, like man's greed and power, and how when they finally do achieve their dream and realize it's not what they wanted, they kind of run away from it rather than dealing with the consequences. But I absolutely love this book. Next on my stack, and something very different, is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This was one of my first books that I read of hers and I absolutely loved it. This is just such a beautiful book. It made me feel really seen in its own way, and I just love how weird and odd it is. But in this we follow a main character who is a 36-year-old woman who is still working at a convenience store, and she's really kind of starting to feel the pressure, or is being pressured by friends and family and people in her life to get a real job and to get an office job in Japan, to settle down and get married and start a family. And they're saying that she's basically just wasting her life, but she is very happy to be just doing this and to be getting by herself. But to try and kind of like please these people that are nagging her, she ends up marrying this man who is her co-worker in like an asexual marriage. Neither of them want to be married, but they're both kind of starting to feel that pressure, and it's about their relationship and the way that the pressures that society and the world puts on women, especially in Japan, and that kind of like machine and system and how Japan operates. And I found this to be really interesting and a really odd book, and just something that I think about all the time. Next up, we've got Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. I read this last year for the first time as an audiobook, and I actually reread it twice. I first listened to it, and then immediately after that, I tracked down a physical copy and I read it and annotated it. And this book is just absolutely so beautiful. I really love different depictions of grief. Like this and Monstralia are some of my favorite ones that deal with that, and you'll see another book coming up, but it is just absolutely so beautiful and heartbreaking and has such an interesting ending that I really think about a lot, and I kind of like the questions it leaves us with in the end. But in this we follow 2 different women. They are married, and one of them has been on a deep sea mission and ended up getting stuck at the bottom of the ocean for an undisclosed amount of time, but a lot longer than they were meant to be down there. And we kind of followed them throughout these different times in their lives. One of them when she is at the bottom of the ocean and some of the things happening there, and then our other character when her wife comes back from this and is different and kind of dealing with someone being changed but being there physically but not completely themselves. It's really interesting and such just a beautiful book. I love the writing and that it's just so atmospheric and beautiful and something I absolutely love and can see myself rereading for years to come. Next up on my list is Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. This has kind of got also themes to do with grief and acceptance and death and loss, which is a big theme in a lot of these books, to be honest, but this is absolutely so terrifying and amazing and just one of my favorite horror books. But in this we follow our main character who has moved away from her family and from her hometown and is starting to have these really weird dreams where there's crows kind of following her around in them. And one morning she wakes up clutching a crow skull in her hand and realizes something needs to be changed and something needs to be done. She ends up going back to her hometown to kind of deal with the things that she was running from, which is the loss of her grandmother and the loss of her sister. And it's kind of about healing from that loss and that trauma and being with her family again and connecting with them, and how she kind of didn't really need to run from that but needed to be with them to truly heal. And it's about finding out the mystery of what actually happened to her sister. It's really beautiful. It has a lot to do with Indigenous mythology and has one of the Indigenous, I don't know the correct term, but it has an Indigenous monster or supernatural being that I absolutely detest and terrifies me. So I really loved it because of that, because it genuinely made me so uncomfortable. But this is just a phenomenal book and something I love, and it's just incredible. Next up we have If We Were Villains. This is by M.L. Rio. This is absolutely incredible as well. I feel like I'm saying that about all of these books, but it is true. I have a tattoo for this book that's on my arm here, but I just absolutely love this. This is pretentious in the best way possible. It's got so many unlikable and lovable characters and just a really interesting mystery at the center of this. But this is a dark academia. It's set at quite a pretentious college. It follows a group of students who are studying Shakespeare and theatre. They quote Shakespeare to each other on a daily basis and in the middle of conversation. So if that's not your thing, you probably want to avoid it, but I personally loved it. So at the beginning of the book, we're following one of the characters who has just been released from prison after he was sentenced for a murder he maybe did or didn't commit. And he is having a discussion with the detective who was in charge of this case, who wants answers because he was never actually happy or satisfied with the outcome of this, and he just wants to know what happened. He's not going to do anything about it. He just wants answers. And then we also obviously follow them throughout this time period of them being students and what went down and who was killed and how they were killed. And it is really interesting and just so shocking and heartbreaking, and I truly just loved this book. M.L. Rio is such a beautiful writer and I just adored this so much. It's something I really want to reread. I have only read it the once and I absolutely devoured it, and it's something I just need to get to again. It also does follow a lot of Shakespearean tropes and uses a lot of, it's heavily influenced by Shakespeare, which I really love, and it's just so phenomenal. Next on my list is a book 2 in a series, and that is Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I love the entire Locktomb series that is out so far, but I think Harrow is my favorite. Gideon is just so insane on its own way, and Nona as well is so incredible in its own way, but just something about Harrow and the way that everything kind of comes together on this, but it also flips everything onto its head, is just absolutely perfection. But if you haven't heard of the Locktomb books, these are space operas. They are kind of survival-esque. At least the first one is. We follow a bunch of characters who have come from different planets and different systems and everything, or different houses is what they're called, and they've all been sent to this isolated planet and this crumbling mansion to try and compete to become lictors. But something slowly starts picking them off along the way, and they have to work out if someone is killing them or if there's something more sinister going on, and figure out that mystery while also trying to obtain the goal they want. It is so beautiful and sad and just hilarious at the same time. The humor in these books is some of my favorite things. They are just incredible. This is another book series I have a tattoo of. These are emotionally devastating as well in the best way, and just the way everything comes together in Harrow is so interesting and confusing, but brilliant at the same time, and just I love these books. Speaking of confusing books, we've also got the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. These books are absolutely incredible. I don't think I've ever read anything like these. I wish I could go back and read them for the first time again, because it is absolutely insane the way everything comes together. This world, the craftsmanship of it, the characters, their dynamics, their relationships, just all of this is phenomenal. In the 5th season, we follow 3 different women at different points in a 5th season. So a 5th season is when the world is ending. They only come every few hundred years, if not more, and there are people that can kind of help make it worse or help make it better in a way. And these people are origins. And one of our characters is an origin, and her husband has just found out that their kids are also origins and have this power and ability. And she comes home from work one day to find her son murdered and her daughter missing, and that sparks this journey to try and find her family and to find out what happened. The other characters we follow, the one is a young girl who is being given up by her family because they found out that she does have these abilities and she's being taken away from them. And then our other character is a younger woman who is in the Fulcrum, which is this place where these people get taken, where they are trained and honed to be able to use their talents and abilities for good, or controlled to be able to use their talents. And we follow her as she is sent out on a mission that she's maybe not prepared for with someone who hates her. And it is just really insane the way that these POVs all interconnect and come together. And just this whole series is so impressive and so well crafted, and you will sob reading every single one of these books. They are just absolutely phenomenal, and I don't really know what else I can say without spoiling it, but these are just some of the best books I have ever read. I am so thankful that these books exist. I don't know who I would be if I hadn't read them, and I just need everyone to pick them up. They are, like I said, confusing. You kind of got to be okay with being confused, and these are books that I think would definitely benefit from a reread. You would definitely be able to piece a lot more together, but just the way everything is written and done, this is just absolutely breathtaking. Okay, the next book I want to talk about is actually the third book in a trilogy, and that is A Conjuring of Light. This is by V.E. Schwab. This is the third book in the Shades of Magic trilogy. I read these books at the very beginning of COVID, and they are something that just really got me back into reading and sparked my love for books again as an adult. They just have such a special place in my heart because of that. Like, this trilogy is absolutely so beautiful. It's definitely not for everyone, and I can see why a lot of people don't love it and don't like it, but I personally really loved it. And this third book is absolutely devastating. That is a theme you will see across all of these. I love books that completely shatter me emotionally and make me feel things, because that's what reading should be about, but this is just absolutely incredible. So if you haven't heard of the Shades of Magic trilogy, the first book is A Darker Shade of Magic. These are set in a world where there is 4 alternate Londons, all with different and varying degrees of magic. So we have got Black London, which has been completely closed off and no one can access it because the magic overran it and destroyed everything. We've got White London, which is the closest to Black London, and they are losing their magic. And then we have also got Red London, which is the most magic rich London. It is the one next to White, and it has got people that can use magic and everything, and it is a lot more powerful than the other versions. And then finally, we've got Grey London, which has got no magic at all. This is kind of like your more typical our version of London, just obviously set in a different time period. And there are specific people who can travel between these different Londons, and they are called the Antari. But there is only 2 of them left, and they are from White and Red London. And their jobs are to kind of communicate between the different leaders of these different Londons about things that are going on and pass letters between these rulers and these people. But this kind of kicks off with following Kel, who is one of these Antari, and he's going to different Londons to do his job and to take letters to the king and everything. And when he is in one of the Londons, he is approached by a woman who needs him to take something from one to another. It's something that is cherished by a family member and somehow was with her but needs to go somewhere else. And he accepts. And that starts with him getting hunted down by a different Antari to find out what this stone is and why it is so powerful and why so many people are looking for it. It is so entertaining, and I love the kind of romantic plotline in this, and it's just such a fun world to explore. We've also got different like magical trials in some of the other books, and just the way this all ends is devastating but beautiful, and I absolutely adore it. Now, the next book is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This is one of my all-time favorite books, clearly since it's on this list, but I was a big Merlin fan as a kid. I absolutely love Arthurian legend, and this just takes such a unique twist and spin on it, and it is just incredible. Again, this is a book that has a really unique look at grief and the way that different people deal with it, and I really appreciate the way it is dealt with in this book. This book does also touch on slavery and the impacts that had on this lineage and this storyline, which I think is so interesting the way it does it, and so horrifying as well because of how real it is. But in this, we follow Bree, who has just lost her mother in a tragic accident and is kind of dealing with that grief and the fallout of that. Then she is accepted into this early start program for a college, and on her first night on campus, she ends up seeing this guy fighting these weird beasts and is being attacked by them as well. She immediately gets thrust into this world of King Arthur's and the Knights of the Round Table, and is trying to find out what's going on while she's also being hunted down by one of the descendants of Merlin. And it is just absolutely insane and beautiful, and this does have a love triangle in it, but this is the only love triangle I will tolerate because of the way it is done. It is just breathtaking perfection. I love this. This is a book I've been putting off reading more of though, because the ending of Bloodmarked, the sequel, was absolutely devastating. And I'm very nervous about book 3, but these are just incredible. I love them so much and think everyone needs to read them, especially if you were a Merlin fan back in the day, the BBC Merlin, or if you are a fan of the Lady Night books that are going on at the moment. This is perfect for it because it really does work within that. Now, the final book on this list is actually my most recent read out of all of these, and that is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is a book series I am so mad at myself for not reading sooner because it is absolutely incredible, but I'm also glad that I've read at this point in my life because I feel like I can appreciate it a lot better, and it's nice to have so many books to be able to get through. But I've spoken about this book series a lot this year, but it is just absolutely incredible. So in Assassin's Apprentice, we follow Fitz. He is the bastard son of one of the princes who is next in line to inherit the Six Duchies throne. And he is given up by his birth family or his birth mother because they no longer could take care of him and they're giving him back to the kingdom, basically. And we follow him as he's kind of trained to become an assassin so he can't be used against the crown, and also kind of trained in these special abilities that only the Farseers have. And we follow him throughout his childhood as he's grown and trained to be this weapon for the kingdom, and the choices and the difficulties that come with that. This series is absolutely devastating as well. It will make you full body sob and cry. It is just so beautiful, and Fitz is such an incredible character, and the world building in these books is incredible, and the character work is absolutely breathtaking. Robin Hobb is just such a good writer when it comes to villains and everything. Their motives are so clear that you kind of can't help but feel for them in a way, or like you can understand why they are the way they are, which makes it very difficult to deal with what is going on because it is so real. But these books are just absolutely incredible and something I love so much. As you can tell, I did end up getting the Illumicrate editions. I just fell in love with this trilogy and I'm so thankful to have it in my life. It is just amazing. Another part of it that I really love is Fitz and the Fool's dynamic and their relationship, and I can't wait to see it grow in the rest of the books. But this trilogy and this whole book is just amazing. I did only pick up the one book because this book is just perfection. I think my favorite book in this trilogy is Royal Assassin, but just all of these are incredible. But those are my top 10 books of all time. Like I said, I feel like this is probably going to change, and it's always so difficult to pick these because I feel like my taste changes somewhat often or progresses, and I have different thoughts and feelings on the books depending on the year and the stage of my life. But these are some of the ones that stick out to me and have kind of stuck with me over the years that I absolutely loved. But I would be really curious to hear some of your favorite books from over the years. So let me know your top 3 books that you have read over your lifetime. But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all with a new video next time. Goodbye.